One Day to Fly, Chapter 1, The Awakening. A low, rhythmic rumble drifted across the rolling hills, too steady for thunder, too distant to be anything the meadows had ever heard before. Morning light revealed a sea of dewdrops on blades of grass, each tiny orb sparkling, before sliding away into the damp earth. Within one particular patch of grass, a faint stirring marked the birth of a new creature. He blinked, or at least performed the closest thing to blinking that his compound eyes would allow. A wave of awareness rippled through his tiny body. He was a fly. His shape and sensations told him that much. Life pulsed inside him, yet a strange disquiet accompanied that realization. An instinctive urgency, as though time itself were a precious resource he must hoard. Nearby, he noticed two older flies, their wings trembling with effort as they clung to a broad leaf. Something about them spoke of fragility. They looked tired. Before long, he summoned the courage to address them, although his voice emerged in small, frantic whirs rather than words. They understood him nonetheless. One of them, with wings tattered and a body dull in color, raised its head. "You have awakened," it seemed to say. "You have one day, 24 hours, just like all of us, then it ends." The young fly's mind spun, grappling with the gravity of that statement. He had only just become aware of the world, and already he was handed a sentence. His existence was laughably short, bound by an inescapable horizon. He watched as the older flies wavered in place, exhausted by the very effort of living. "Is there nothing more?" the young fly silently implored, though he lacked the words. The older one gave him a sorrowful glance, as if to say, "That is our way. It always has been." The rumbling in the distance grew, capturing the young fly's limited attention. The horizon wavered with silhouettes of large creatures. Men, though the fly had no name for them. They wore strange helmets that glinted, even under the weak morning sun. Some marched in formation, while others sat atop hulking mechanical beasts that rattled on metal treads, belching smoke. The smell of that smoke drifted across the meadow, an odor foreign and unsettling. Instinct urged the fly to recoil from it, yet a part of him was curious. He wondered, why are these massive figures on the move? Where are they going? A sense of foreboding hung in the air, heavier than the morning mist. He turned back to the older flies, wanting to plead for answers. But they had already crawled away, too wary to offer more guidance, struggling to process this abrupt revelation, a life measured in hours. The fly felt a swirl of panic welling up inside him. His brief existence seemed, from the outset, unfairly constrained. The meadow itself remained beautiful dew, laden grass and wildflowers nodded gently in the breeze. Birds in the distant sands sang their morning songs, oblivious to the mechanical thunder. But the young fly's eyes lingered on the strange machines and uniformed men. Even though he lacked words for war, he sensed conflict. The precise, rigid movements of these men carrying rifles or driving monstrous vehicles hinted at something urgent, perhaps dangerous. He stretched his wings experimentally. They were damp and folded awkwardly from the confines of his recent metamorphosis. When he tried to flutter, he barely rose an inch before tumbling back onto the grass. His entire body ached, his exoskeleton still hardening. There was so much to learn, so much to see, and such little time. Confusion gnawed at him. What is the point of such a life if it ends so quickly? Did everything exist just to vanish? Could there possibly be a grand design to explain such brevity? Another wave of rumbling, closer this time. The fly saw that the men in helmets, more numerous than before, were moving up a dirt road. The swirl of dust they kicked up reached the meadow, making the fly cough. If a fly could cough. He picked up a faint tang of metal and an undercurrent of fear that seemed to permeate the air. Something big was happening, but he had no words for it. His gaze wandered to the older flies again. They had come to rest on a ragged leaf, nearly motionless. Their strength was spent. A flurry of sympathy and dread rose in the young fly's tiny heart. He was witnessing the end of their single day, not long after his own beginning. So this was how the cycle continued. Day after day, countless births, countless deaths, all overshadowed by the unstoppable passage of time. Suddenly, the older fly's wings gave a final tremor. They slipped from the leaf and fell onto the damp grass below, where they lay still. The young fly trembled, unsure whether he felt grief or just fear for his own future. Another wave of that mechanical thunder caused him to scuttle nervously. The older flies were gone. He was alone now, at least in spirit. The morning sun climbed higher, beginning to dry the dew, offering the fly's wings a chance to unfurl properly. Should I stay here, he wondered, or follow those men? He felt an inexplicable pull toward the larger events on the horizon. Perhaps if he understood why they marched, he might unravel the mystery of existence, why life was so brief, and what purpose he might serve in that short span. Taking a deep breath in his small, insect way, the fly began creeping toward the edge of the meadow. He made one last glance at the motionless forms of what he'd known as his parents. Then, pushing aside the rising tide of dread within him, he resolved to seek answers. The horizon called, and the only thing certain was that his time was ticking away, second by second. Outside, the rumbling continued, far more methodical now, echoing off unseen hills. The air smelled faintly of smoke, and the tension of a world on the brink. In that tension, the young fly felt his own existence mirrored, uncertain, precarious, and brief. With a final resolve, he spread his trembling wings, prepared to take the first step. A flight into a world he could hardly comprehend. He would find meaning, if any existed, before his day was done.
Thank you so much for listening, and if you are still awake, please do me a huge favor. Just like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it.